Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Mum Show. You are in for a treat today as we are joined in the Mum Show kitchen by singer-songwriter Lily Joe. So get yourselves comfortable, grab a cup of tea and let's get started. To another episode of The Mum Show. I am joined here in the kitchen once again by Pastor Claire Hooper,
hello,
child therapist Emma Brown, and our glamorous singer-songwriter Lily Joe is joining us today.
Good. Hello.
So good to have you joining us, Lily Joe.
Thank you so much.
And today we're going to be having a chat about self-esteem. We're looking at how we can help our children cultivate a positive self-esteem and how they can move forward. And is it anything to do with us? It's always to do with us, right?
Always.
It's always to do with the mums. Whenever we have these conversations, we always come back to the point of, it's all to do with us.
Absolutely.
We've got, well, it's not all to do with us, it's all to do with Jesus, but we do have a part to play in that.
Yeah, we do, and I know I talk about this all the time, but as parents, we are the mirrors, aren't we? We are the mirrors to how our children view God, and also mirrors of how our children begin to view themselves. So, you know, again, you know, going back to those first few years of life, I think children learn to feel valued and learn to feel secure and loved through how we as parents respond to them, and having that consistent, safe, nurturing, attuned response to our children really builds that, doesn't it? But I also think that, you know, actually our own self-esteem, how we view ourselves, has a huge impact.
Yeah.
And actually there's a lot of research to say that the biggest predictor of a child's self-esteem is their parents, how the parents view themselves as well.
That's really sobering, isn't it?
It's really sobering, and it's why I'm so excited that you've joined us. Because you're a mum of two, right?
Yep.
So you have Dylan.
Dylan's 10.
Dylan's 10
and Nico is 5.
Nico is 5, which is a very cool age gap to have because you're going to have a perfect babysitter.
Yeah, that was so true, actually.
You should totally all plan your children just like that.
Well, it wasn't actually planned in that way. Kind of after having Dylan, it was like I was a bit traumatised by the whole thing. It was just like, oh my goodness. And I was quite young, actually. I was quite a young mum.
Yeah.
I was 24 when I had him. Yeah. So all my friends were still partying and living their best life, and I was kind of at home with a baby, you know. Yeah. So it was quite difficult. But then at the same time, I wasn't quite ready to jump in there again. So 5 years was like quite a nice age gap for me.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. And it works.
And now they're both in school, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I have all this free time. What the heck?
What do I do?
Yeah, exactly.
But you've made some really big life changes, haven't you? Yes. Are you able to share a little bit of that?
Yeah, so when I had Dylan, actually, I'm not really, I would say, an earth mum. Like, I'm not someone that was like always thinking I was going to spend all my time at home with my kids. I did know that I had dreams, and I did know that I had things in my heart that I wanted to do. And really, from a young age, I found that unlocking freedom within myself first and then others was something that I really, really wanted to do. And I knew that songwriting was something that I could do that with. But as a mum, I was like, I can't really go out and gig right now with a baby at home. Like, I'm too tired, I'm exhausted. How am I going to actually go out till 2 in the morning and then wake up at 6 a.m. with this toddler? And I can't do that. It's not going to happen. Yeah. So I went back to college and I retrained as a counsellor. So that's when I kind of learned my skills in counselling and spent, I think it was 4 years in total training. Throughout the time, as you know, Dylan would nap in the day and I'd write my essays. And for me, that was really fulfilling because it meant that I was actually being of value in, or was going to be of value in the wider world, not just within my home.
You're investing in yourself.
Exactly. I was investing in myself, and at the time I was kind of able to just kind of grab onto you know, friends and family that would help babysit while I went off to college. And for me, it was about, well, actually, as a counsellor, I can still unlock freedom in people's lives. It still was my core mission was to unlock freedom, and I could still do that, whether it was through songwriting, which wasn't really happening at that time, but as a counsellor, I could do that on a one-to-one basis. So I did that, I retrained. And then when I had my daughter, Nico, I remember being on the sofa breastfeeding and just being like, oh, actually, I need to write a song. So I wrote this song. And
It just came to you like that?
Yeah, actually,
wow.
it just came to me like that. And
Love
I thought,
it.
wow, and it was called Pressure, about kind of...
It's such an appropriate song.
Like this?
Yeah, I was like, wow. So that was Pressure. And then I just thought, oh, well, maybe I'll see if anyone wants to hear it. So I sent it off to like UCB radio and they started to play it. And I was like, oh, okay, people like this. So, it's created a website, like, an artist page on Facebook or whatever, and just began the journey of being an artist. I didn't know what it would look like, didn't know if it'd be possible as a mum, but just began to take baby steps towards it. Knowing that my songwriting would hopefully unlock freedom as well. So the whole thing was about unlocking freedom in myself first. Obviously been through loads of different experiences and had to deal with those, went for counselling myself at that time and then kind of coming through and, now really stepping into a life of singer-songwriting, touring,
So it
being
built
here
your
with you guys today.
self-esteem.
Yeah.
In that time, when you were looking for something, it built your self-esteem.
Yeah, and I think at that time when I was feeling pressure, my self-esteem was probably a 3 out of 10, and now it's probably a 9 out of 10. And I think like weight, our weight goes up and it goes down over time. I think self-esteem does the same, doesn't it? It can be, you can have a sense of self-esteem where it's like, whoa, I'm doing really well here, I'm on about a 9, but you can have about a 3. And I think it's really important as a mum to check in with yourself on where you're at. Where is your self-esteem at today, and how can you improve it? If it's a 3 or a 2 or even a 1, how can you start to boost that in yourself so that your kids can mirror that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's given them that voice. I love that term of unlocking freedom, because it's like that, isn't it? It's like when you've unlocked yourself and I'm confident in who I am, and for what you're saying there, it's so much to do with purpose. I'm confident in my purpose, I'm confident in the core of how God's made me, then that just starts to funnel through to our kids. And they're totally behind it, aren't they?
Yeah, my kids are amazing. And I didn't have a role model of... my mum wasn't a touring artist. She was in a band and she played bass guitar, so I did grow up going to sound checks, and my mum and dad were really involved in the church, so worship leading and that kind of thing. So I was always testing mics 1, 2, 3, and it was what I kind of grew up with. And my nana and granddad as well, they were both musicians, so I've got kind of a history of that. But my kids, I didn't have a blueprint of how to be a mum and do the music thing full time at all. And my
there's
kids
almost like a guilt there at times, isn't there?
Absolutely.
There's like a pressure of,
absolutely.
am I allowed to pursue who I feel called to be, or is this something that I have to choose a word you hate, Claire? Season. Is this a season where everything has to stop? And have I got permission to pursue what God's placed in my heart?
Yeah, exactly. And I think I do check in with them and I find out how they're doing. And there was a time I've been touring with the band called LZ7 for the last 2.5 years, and I've only recently stepped out of that to do Lily Joe properly, kind of giving it all my energy and time. And there was a time where it got a little bit too much. And I think you learn like what your capacity is, like as a working mum. You learn, well, actually, that's too long away from them, or that's too much time. And then you have to kind of claw back from that. So it is a bit about give and take, and you can see that in your kids. You know when they're missing you, and you know when it's just been too much. And I think you can learn from that. So now we have boundaries in place in our family where it's like, actually, only a certain period of time we can go away, and then when we're back, we need to make sure that we're spending enough time with them. And so
it's about balance, isn't it?
It is. Sometimes it's hard to balance, though, isn't it? So it's kind of like.
But I think we've talked before about kind of the whole pressures on mums to kind of either be this or this.
Yeah.
And either it's all good or it all feels terrible.
The
and actually,
absolutes.
and how we can maybe try and, I think, tolerate and hold different positions and different parts of ourselves at the same time, so we can get. And there will be days where we will be more mum, and there'll be days when we're more artist or more therapist or more church pastor or storyteller. We can all be parts of ourselves, and I think it doesn't have to be kind of absolutes, does it?
And don't you find when you're actually, you yourself are reaching for that, it does benefit your family, because the more courageous you live, the more in freedom you live, the more you reach for those things that you know God's planted in your heart, the dreams and the things that you see happening and working towards that, and not just staying in that set place. There's that story in the Old Testament where it's a great representation of it, where the people of Israel had lived for 400 years in captivity with the Egyptians, and you know, it was finally time, and Moses was like, okay, God, me and God were working towards that. But they'd stayed in that place, and their self-esteem must have been at an all-time low. But reaching then for what God had for them was what took them through probably one of the most difficult journeys of their life, to cross the sea. It was not an easy journey. It didn't just part and then, you know, they danced across. It was muddy, it was raining, there was a raging like war behind them, there was like, you know, an army coming after them. It was huge. And I think reaching for that to build your courage is like a journey.
I think it's setting the expectation that as humans we grow.
Yes.
That's not just as children, but as humans we grow and as humans we develop. And it allows them to see that. If you look further on down that story, when Moses goes and he clears off and he goes and that's his time done, he leaves a song, and that song is to be sung over the next generation and the next generation, and it's a song that is supposed to be in their hearts. It's a song that they never forget. And I love that feeling, because it's that sense that actually the way you live your life is probably one of the most powerful songs you can pass on to your kids. It's like, this is what I'm doing right now, this is the bravery I'm going to show, the courage I'm going to show. These are the problems I'm going to face, but you know what, you can own them a little bit as well. And that's when we raise our kids from starting life in the same position and fighting the same fights, to actually raising the platform to above us. I've done this, so you know that you've experienced that bit of the journey with me. Now you can go even further.
Yeah, I think that is really, really important, because I think sometimes we think or believe as parents, in order to raise our kids' self-esteem, that we need to shower them with lots of kind of praise. And I'm not saying we shouldn't praise our kids, but we kind of wrap them up in kind of bubble wrap, where we don't allow anything negative to get to them. Because I think when we kind of it's got to feel authentic, hasn't it? Whatever we kind of put into our children has got to feel real, and that involves ourselves being authentic and real, and letting them see some of the struggles that we go through, not kind of pretending that we're completely fine if we're not, but finding a way to kind of have those conversations or reveal those parts of ourselves.
I think for us, like, we've just kind of cultivated this year a time of prayer every morning, like Monday to Friday. So when we're in school run vibe, we kind of stop, we say, everyone ready for 8:25, let's sit round the table and let's just pray for the day. And because I've been stepping out in faith and really like just going, God, you just need to meet me on the water here. They've been seeing the prayers that I'm praying, and then they've been seeing the answers. So that's been incredible, because they've been on the journey, seeing kind of mum needs some help, and then God's providing what mum needs.
That's not self-esteem, that's God-esteem.
Yeah,
even more powerful, right?
It's incredible, absolutely, and they're just learning.
I am who you say I am. That's the God-esteem, isn't it? I am who you say I am. There's a song out at the minute, isn't there, about that, I think?
Most likely. Let's hear from the kids. You ready? We always like to meet some kids in the middle of the show, so here we go. Let's hear what they've got to say.
And action! The thing I love about myself most is that I'm funny and I make people laugh. Knock knock. Who's there? I just poo. I just poo who? I just pooed. That was the only trick I had. The thing that I love about myself is I'm just pretty. The thing I love about myself is that I'm like really confident with stuff, so I just go up for everything and I'm loud.
So what sort of things have you been able to do because you're so confident?
Well, first I got to stage 84, and I was not going to do that at first because I was stage school, performing arts. I wasn't going to do it at first because I didn't think I was confident enough, and I didn't think I would be good enough to go there and I would fit in.
What's something you've done that you think, oh, I did an amazing job at that?
Because I like doing trampolining, I didn't think that I'd trust myself to be able to do a backflip. And then when all my friends was doing it at their house, they supported me. and I trusted myself and I was able to do a backflip.
What do you think God thinks about you?
I think God thinks that I'm a smart, clever girl.
Why does he think that?
God ever told you that you were smart and beautiful? What God said to me was that I am smart because I don't know if I haven't found out my test results about my maths and English test, but he's told me that I've got a really good result because my mum was praying for me, so I think I've got a really good result now.
And what else does God say about you?
God loves the way that I am beautiful and smart because I get my tests right. God loves the way that I make people laugh a lot with my silly faces.
Go on then.
God loves the way that I'm a child of God and that I make people laugh.
What does it mean being a child of God?
Being a child of God means that Jesus loves you and you love him. If you're feeling sad, that you'll always be one of a kind, you'll always be sweet and caring and loving, and yeah, Jesus loves you a lot. I mean, a lot.
Brilliant. You and those girls. I mean, a lot.
Brilliant.
I love those girls so
Yeah,
much. Do
they
you know what? I tried so hard to see if I could take an angle where, you know, they're going to show some vulnerability, but their confidence levels
Amazing.
were so genuine and just through the roof. But one of the things that was really interesting was I was chatting to their mum afterwards, and she was sharing with me how she had lacked confidence and that she had done had a passion for gymnastics, and I won't share the whole story, but she had really struggled so much with her own confidence and seen it as something that limited her. And so she said she had intentionally decided that she was going to work on that, that she was going to make sure that she, I mean, honestly, I've never met such a powerful woman as this lady. She was absolutely incredible. And the stories that she was sharing and that kind of, it wasn't that she thought that she was constantly saying, girls, you're amazing. Everyone, you're the most beautiful on the planet. No one looks like you, my dear hearts. But she was like proper powerful.
That's what I say to my daughter.
Nothing wrong with that.
I think we need moments. I don't, we need to shower our kids, don't we?
Yeah.
We need to absolutely cover them and shower them with love.
They're not going to hear it from anyone else.
No.
But it was that strength that was saying that, do you know what, she's come up against adversaries, but she has powered through it.
Yeah.
And she was
Amazing.
giving her kids that
Love
platform. That to them, that was just an assumption. And again, the first thing they said was, I'm a child of God. So it says it all then, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, having Jesus at the centre of everything. That is where our confidence and our self-esteem should come from. That's where our self-worth should be.
Yeah.
Like, it's not in us, it's not in what we can do, but it's in what he does through us, you know? It's such a privilege to be able to be a vessel for him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally.
And we share that platform with our kids because we're their parents, but we're all children of God. So when we manage ourselves in that way, we just communicate so much to them, don't we?
That's true. That's when we're an equal to them.
Yeah.
You know, and actually we give them that confidence because of what God says, what Jesus says about us. And that makes us, we're as much a child of God as they're a child of God. In God's eyes, we're all his children. We may be caretakers for their life at the moment, but once they get to that stage of being an adult, I mean, and I've grown an adult, it feels very strange to say that. You know, you say you're growing a baby, you go, I'm growing a baby inside me. I'm like, I grew a real life human adult. I hope he contributes to the world. But then you reach that and you're like, actually, you enter a different peer level with them. And actually then you know, well, has my confidence, you see them mirror it throughout their life, and has my esteem, has my self-esteem, has my God confidence, has my self-confidence been enough to give them a foundation to have a good confidence in their own life as well. Good self-esteem.
I think it'd be good as well to just kind of think a little bit, because we've talked a lot over the series about teens, and she's with me now. I can see the empathy all over your face. You're like, I know where you're going here, Marina. And the truth is, we had some teens on that we've been speaking to, and they're they're living in a cruel world, and there is so much going on with online bullying. There is so much that our kids are having to face. You know, I've heard it with my own children when you see somebody tear a chunk out of them, or you see, you know, we do live in a world where at times it's just really common to crush their spirits or to make them feel awful. And it's almost how in those moments can we start to do repair work, because sometimes the voices outside of the home can seem a lot louder than the voices within the home. Or perhaps, you know, in some homes actually, as a mum, you might be flying that flag, but there's other people in that family, and you can see self-esteem starting to drop. How can we do a repair work in those families?
Well, I mean, I think it happens almost at the most crucial point in a child's development as well. You know, the kind of, you know, the vulnerability and the exposure to life and to other people outside of the home all happens usually about that transition into secondary school, doesn't it? And their worlds suddenly get bigger, but internally, we're going to talk, you know, quite a bit about what happens in the teenage brain on another episode, but the changes are huge that goes on for teenagers. They become so much more self-aware, and it's almost the way I've described it, and I've got a 13-year-old, and it almost felt like it happened overnight, and it doesn't happen like that for sometimes it's more gradual, but for Libby it literally felt like a layer of skin had been peeled off overnight, and she was just suddenly so exposed to kind of the world and the other messages. So yes, she had a foundation, or I hope that she had a foundation and knew that she was loved and secure, but there was just so much coming at her, and she still struggles. She will, but I think the thing is, I think the most important thing is to keep the lines of communication open. I know we say this a lot, but just keep talking about it, and like I was saying earlier, be authentic. So don't just try and sugarcoat. So if Libby was saying to me, this person said this about me, this person thinks that I'm a bad person or is really having a go at me for this. I feel really rubbish about myself, and you know we've heard that the kids, you know, hear awful things from each other, don't they? So it's not about sugarcoating it and saying, oh, don't listen to them. It's not, you know, it's having empathy. Like, God, that must be so awful that your friend or someone you thought was your friend feels like that about you. You know, I would feel exactly the same as you. It's so hard to tolerate those feelings, but you know, what is it? Let's just really think about what's the truth. What do you know about yourself? Do you really believe this? And it's just starting to have those conversations that, you know, we can't make it all okay. No matter how much we try, we cannot protect them completely from it, but we can keep the lines of communication open and allow, and I think if we allow ourselves to be vulnerable and take risks with our teenagers when we have those discussions, they're going to be much more, I suppose, open themselves and feel able to take a risk with us as well, because it is scary.
It's not even just teens though these days. I'm finding it's getting, I mean, my daughter went through a stage when she was, I'd say when she was about 7.5, 8 years old, and she really struggled, and it was a lot to do with the friendship culture that she'd found herself in. And I remember her saying that at lunchtimes she would stay and watch the boys play football at 7.5. That was what she had to do. She had to stand and watch the boys play football because that's what everyone else is doing. And she was just like, wow, just a shadow of us. I know, right? I'm like, at 7.5, you should be playing, you should be having fun. And we went on such a journey to remind her of who she is and to remind her that she was brave. And 12 months later, so a big proud mummy moment now, are you ready?
Yeah.
4 weeks ago, we signed her up to a football club.
Woohoo!
She was the only girl in there, and she said, I'm scared. And we said, what are you scared of? And she was like, I'm scared that they're going to hurt me because they're boys. I'm scared that they're going to be too rough with me. My husband was like, they should be scared. Because she is not
she's a
delicate flower, is she? Let's put it that way. You know, she is tough.
Yeah.
And she's been playing, she's done so many sessions now within that group, and the comments people say to me is like, wow, she doesn't care, does she? She's like right in there, she's absolutely loving it. And I'm just so glad, but it was such a long process. Like, we couldn't just say, no, it's fine, you're done, just crack on and play. We had to go through a really long process of reminding her again and again, no, this is who you are. You know, you are a strong girl, you're an independent girl, you know your own mind, you make your own choices, but it can be really disheartening as a parent, because for those months you're in like this wilderness
of not knowing.
Am I going to come through this? Are we going to, is what I'm saying working? Is she receiving any of this, or is this just going to be it for the rest of time?
We say that phrase self-esteem, but I'm interested from the two of you, obviously because you work with a project self-esteem based in youth, what are the key factors that build your self-esteem? What are the foundations of that? Because it's courage, we keep hearing courage, confidence.
I mean, I think, the foundations are about kind of feeling safe, loved, of value, having that internal sense that I'm lovable, I'm of value. But then I think as a child goes on, they've got to find, you know, I remember Libby saying to me often, but what's my thing, mummy? I need a thing. Wow. Because, you know, actually we all need to feel purposeful. We all need to feel like we've got an identity,
which is God's original plan for us to have a purpose.
And the story that you went on with saying, you know, this is what's in me that needs to come out.
And if I felt like if I wasn't living with that purpose, then I wasn't really living. And I think it's really important, isn't it, for us to kind of delve into ourselves. I mean, I've done a lot of that through counselling training, and you'll know, Emma, like it's just, by the end of it, you're like, I don't want to talk about myself ever again.
I'm done.
Yeah, so done. But I think once you really know yourself and what it is that makes you tick, and I think journaling for me, in terms of tools, really helps kind of getting it out there. And I usually journal to God, because it's like, well, not just talking to myself, I'm just like, dear God, this is what I'm going through today. And kind of putting those points down on paper, and it captures what's going on in your head, kind of that taking thoughts captive, popping it into a journal.
Love that.
And then being able to just decipher what is it that I'm actually wanting to do in this world, and what do I want to contribute to this world, and how am I doing? That for me was a benchmark. How am I doing? Now, I usually only ever wrote in my journal when I was going through really hard stuff. So if anyone found it when I die, they're going to be like, oh my goodness, this is a dark place. So I do need to remind myself to write down the good stuff as well. So I do try, but yeah, it is that thing of just really processing, and it's okay to like take time out for yourself and find those moments where you do that.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good tool, actually. Claire, you got any? We're rounding up, so let's give some tools.
Tools for building self-esteem, especially for my kids. I feel like it is my greatest joy to help them live courageously. I want my kids to live free as well. I feel like something similar. I feel like I'm on a life path to help people get free. I've fought for years to get free myself from other people's expectations or, you know, opinions. So yeah, that helping them live courageously and live free, and by whatever means I can as a parent, usually in covert ways, isn't it? It's not usually the obvious saying things, it's usually behind the scenes work, lifting them up a little bit higher, helping them.
Yeah. You got one there, Emma?
Be authentic, deal with your own sense of self-esteem, go through your past, and, you know, find opportunities. If you can see that your child's got an interest or a talent, you know, go with that. Give them those opportunities to shine and feel good about themselves.
That's good. I like that. I'm going to go for one.
Go on, go for it.
I'm going to say never see anything as fixed.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Growth mindset.
That's growth mindset. You can always move through that. In fact, I said to kind of put that in context, my little boy is dyslexic, and I've celebrated him so much in what he's able to do that the other day I said to him, I said, Ruben, do you want to come and do this program on the computer? And he said, no, not now. And I said, oh, it's really good for dyslexia. And he went, it's fine, I'm already dyslexic. I was like, yeah, we might need to readdress that one. Anyway, we hope you have enjoyed us. We have certainly enjoyed ourselves and enjoyed having Lily Jo here in the Mum Show kitchen with us. Good news is, if you would like to hear more from her and about the work that she does around self-esteem, including some great top tips for parenting, then please head over to our website at promisecollective.co.uk. We will see you very soon. Goodbye.
Hello parents, don't forget to say hello. We're at promisecollective.co.uk. Bye!